वो जो है ना, जब सीए फाइनल था, उन्होंने एक सेशन हमारी कॉलेज में लिया था।
ओके,
जो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट कोर्स के रिलेटेड।
ओके।
हमारे
Now we are playing ICI motto song. I request all the participants to put their right hand on their heart.
येष सुप्तेषु जागृति येष सुप्तेषु जागृति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तदेव शुक्रदब्रह्मा तदब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः दोषः शतः सर्वे तदूना सर्वे कश्चन कश्चन एतद्वैता 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 एतद्वैता.
Now I request Chairman of Ahmedabad branch, CA Fenil Shah, to give his opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishan Bhai, for giving a wonderful start. But experienced and interested and involved in the field of forensic audit, none other but CA Dhara Daxini she's from Ahmedabad, but presently she's in Dubai, UAE. CA Bishan Shah, Secretary of the branch, CA Kaival Shah, the coordinator for this session, and other members who are present in this session. A very good evening to all of you. Friends, before we move with this particular session, let me just tell you that once this session ends at 6, from 6:30, means I can say that this is the third, this is the second session, and today in all we are having 3 sessions at 6:30. From 6:30 to 8:30, we are going to have a session on research. The whole workshop is going on research, spread into 7 topics, different topics which are involved in research. So in case, if you have not yet joined, you can still join the same, and the earlier sessions will be provided to you in form of a recorded version. And friends, apart from this, like Dhara took an opportunity to be a speaker and to address all of us. Likewise, in many young members and young chartered accountants, there is always a desire that yes, they have a knowledge, but they don't know how to represent it. They don't know how to speak in public. They don't know how to prepare their speech and how to present it. So for all of them in the November, right, and December together, we are going to have a series of how to be a speaker. Right now, the series is, our workshop is going on how to be a researcher. Once that ends, we will be back with the workshop on how to be a speaker. So I invite you all to be the part of the same. Apart from that, friends, in the next month to come, we are coming up with this with the sessions on capital market. We are coming up with the sessions to guide us on this COVID-19 scenario also. And one very unique thing we are coming up with, we know, we all have heard of Nani Palkhiwala ji, the legend in the field. And this year is the 100th birth anniversary of him. And we are celebrating that anniversary by having the series of 5 sessions in which we are going to have sessions which made Nani Palkhiwala sir a legend, that how we can imbibe those qualities in us. In that field, we are having the 5 different sessions. Moreover, friends, today ICI also introduced one concept of VCare, that is, all the chartered accountant members who are of 75 years or above can take the benefit of this particular VCare initiative of ICI. More I'll share by the email communication in the next week to come. So now today here we are to unveil the concepts, the approach, the techniques, the skills which are needed to venture into the field of forensic audit. And yes, for all the young members who are there, there is always a scope in this particular field, and you might be aware of that ICA is also to come up with the forensic standards, and also few standards were kept in the domain for comment, and many more are to come. So when our institute, Mother Institute, is coming with the standards on it, so that you can understand that what volume of work we anticipate in the times to come in the new scenario too. Brief words. Again, I welcome Dhara Daxini, and it's always a proud moment when a teacher sees his student as a speaker. So it's a proud moment for me also, Dhara, to welcome you to the platform to share your views with all. Now I request CA Kaival Shah to formally introduce the speaker for the evening.
A very good evening to Chairman Sir, CA Bishan Shah Sir, a very young and dynamic speaker for the today's session, CA Dhara Daxini, and to all my professional colleagues. Welcome to the session on decoding the future, I mean forensic audit. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker for the today's session. CA Dhara Daxini is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. She is presently working as an auditor at well-renowned firm NR Doshi & Partners, Dubai. She has done her Bachelor of Business Administration from KS School of Business Management, Gujarat University. She has completed her higher education from Ahmedabad and has pursued her articleship from Dhiren Shah & Company, Ahmedabad. To highlight her co-curricular activity, she was the state-level winner in Vache Gujarat, a campaign which was organized by the government of Gujarat, headed by the then Chief Minister of the Gujarat, Shri Narendra Modi ji. She was actively engaged in Ahmedabad Vikasa, and she has also taken session in study club on the topic of the UAE VAT. A habit of reaching to roots of a matter takes auditing favorite to her. An avid reader, inside her inspires to write blogs, articles, and academic content. Being a member, she has also taken a session in our Ashram Road CP, giving insights into forensic accounting, auditing, and investigation. spark, passion, patience, and persistence had led her to Dubai via Ahmedabad from a village named Thangad from Surendranagar, and this is just the beginning. Please join me in welcoming today's speaker, CA Dhara Daxini.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The floor is all yours. You can continue, Dhara.
Thank you, Kaival, for this nice introduction. Thank you, Fanil sir, Bhishan sir. It is a proud moment for me also that speaking in front of the faculties to whom you have admired lifelong and whom you have admired during the whole journey. Not just in respect of academic content, but throughout the life, that it is always said that a true teacher influences students' life, and you can never tell that where his influence stops. A good teacher influences a student till eternity, and I am glad having a few faculties and one
कैमरे में ना वो देखना मैं चालू करता हूँ वीडियो
start with my session. I hope screen is visible perfectly.
Yes.
Okay. So my today's topic is decoding forensic audit. Basically, we as a chartered accountants are always known for doing something new, being dynamic, accepting challenges. We are not just a chartered accountant, we are also accountants who always accepts challenge. We are can-do accountants. So this is just another topic which will expand our horizons and which will give us immense opportunity to learn and to perform our basic to perform the further procedures in the field of forensic accounting and auditing. So now if we see the that corporate governance, audits, accounts, forensic accounts, auditing, investigation, all these terms sound quite new and emerging as of now for all of us and for as a global level also. But if we see that in India especially, we are enriched by the Kautilya's Arthashastra, Niti Shastra. So we can say that this might sound a new topic, but if we look back to our history and to our the enriched heritage we all have inherited from our learned people, we can say that in the Kautilya was in India before 4th century. So in his Arthashastra and in his Niti Shastra, he had mentioned the concepts of accounting, auditing, and fraud, etc. Of course, the terminologies might have been different. The concepts were similar. Terminologies, uses, process might have been different, but if I had mentioned that accounting needs to be maintained year wise, he had mentioned financial year. At that time, financial year was from July to June. He had also mentioned that an organization should maintain a proper books of accounts. He had mentioned the criteria for expense bifurcation, like capital, revenue, and everything, which we still follow that. So accounting and auditing roots are strongly connected with the before 4th century. So these might appear new things, but if we look back into our heritage and in our tradition, we are superbly enriched by that, and we should always be grateful and proud for that we have encompassed since a very long journey in this field. If we see that for auditing, Kautilya had mentioned that there should be a different authority to whom accountants will report and to whom auditors will report. to ensure that independence is maintained with respect to the books of accounts and with respect to financial aspects. So if we see now, our whole audit is based on the independence. Independence is our key criteria and our key like our key identity, we can say that. So that is also we are carried on from our huge heritage. At that time for audit there were different checks that books of accounts should be reviewed weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, and so on, just to ensure that proper checks are maintained and there are no manipulation and there are no mistakes. So that we also carried on that. Limited reviews we are doing quarterly, annual audits we are doing. So that is also moreover the same concept. With respect to fraud, earlier the systems were like Rajya and Rajmahal and all. So just to identify the frauds, like Kautilya had suggested that a king should keep various spies just to have an eye on an accountant and an auditor in order to identify fraud in earlier stage. Of course, as I said earlier, the methods were different, but the core has been the same. So at that time also Kautilya had listed in his Arthashastra, if you see, he had mentioned more than 40 categories of fraud. So no wonder, since before the 4th century till now, like we can say that human psychology has not changed much. We have evolved, but just that our core has been remained same. Frauds were there at that time also, and it has been carried on presently also. So along with the identification of fraud, Kautilya had mentioned the ways for gathering information, organizational structure, and a list of punishment if someone is found doing frauds. So that was also mentioned there. The thing which I am looking back in our history and in our tradition, just to correlate the things that we have encompassed a long journey, and we have been doing this since long, just that terminologies have been changed, circumstances have been changed, business structures have been changed. We have shifted to multinational companies from Rajya, but the essence have been same. With respect to economy and financial soundness, there have been three essential principles or sutras I would like to enlist from Chanakya. First one was Sukhasya Mulam Dharma. That means happiness is based on the dharma. That means doing right things, doing correct things, and following our morals and principles. So if we correlate this with our audit, normal audit and forensic audit as well. So first thing, we try to give our opinion that financial statements and the affairs of the company state true and fair view. So that means by being true, somehow we are ensuring that we are following our dharma. What we should do, we are doing that. So that one is first one principle. Second one is dharmasya mulam artha. We all know that we want to do right things, we are doing right things, but for that money is the key. Many times it is a sad reality of our society that we see many people who are doing illful things because just to earn few extra money, or they are not having sufficient money, that's why they get into the ill businesses. So we need money and we need to be financially strong for following our principles, and that is a very practical thing we all are observing in the present era. And the third one is arthasya mulam rajya. Money would be earned, there would be a financial stability if there is a rajya. That means if there is a good corporate governance, if there is a good governance, if there are good rules, regulations which are favoring people and which are favoring the business basically, then there would be a financial soundness and wealthiness. So this is the whole thing we are carried forward with respect to accounts, audit, and finance. Now, if I formally start my topic of forensic accounting, auditing, and investigation, basically decoding forensic auditing. So forensic, if we understand the word, forensic is basically derived from the Latin word forensis, which means something that can be presented or that can be valid in the court of law. So if we interpret the definition and meaning of forensic word, it means that we should obtain evidences strongly which can be presented in the court of law or on or before the forum which are governing. So that is the meaning of forensic accounting and auditing. Practically, forensic accounting and auditing can be used like interchangeably. So as we stated that forensic means doing analysis and obtaining evidences that can be presented in the court of law. So forensic accounting and auditing means that applying our accounting, auditing, and investigative skills in order to obtain the evidences when it comes to corporates and when it comes to the financial aspects of the company. So forensic accounting is basically integration of all the professional skills with respect to accounts, finance, and auditing. Forensic investigation, now that is one step ahead from the auditing, because in auditing, like, we obtain evidences but we never do with a suspicious frame of mind, or we never do that having a back of mind that we are investigating the company, we are checking the company, or we are checking the records of the company. So forensic investigation is basically to extract evidences in the manner that can be presented in the court of law, and very concrete evidences that will lead to investigation and to derive concrete conclusions based on that. Fraud auditing. Now, if we see the fraud, the normal ideology we can give about the fraud is doing something which is not right, and that act is done with the intention of doing something wrong, with the intention of harming someone, or basically to gain an undue advantage, or to gain an advantage which we on which we are not holding the right on that. Auditing is a meticulous review of the transactions of the company, or the evidences, or obtaining evidences in such a manner that able to us, that would enable us, and that would lead us to fraud. It can be fraud prevention, or if fraud has already happened, then in that case fraud detection and the corrective measures based on our investigation or based on our audit, we can take the corrective measures also. So that is the concept of fraud auditing. Now, red flags. If we are seeing the forensic accounting and auditing, red flags is the key word we can say. So red flags are basically the something which we the observation which tells us that something is wrong, and we should focus on that. Now if I give one example, say this is a disclaimer that whatever examples I might give, these are strictly to be pursued as as an academic thing only, and just to give more explanation. So if I give one example of red flag, there is one company and which is having a huge turnover and huge transactions. So for one party, like they are recording sales, a proper documentation is available, like sales agreement, sales invoices, payment receipt, payment advice, everything is there. So there are sales recorded receipts books, everything is proper. Now, while doing ledger scrutiny, for example, for one party, you observe that after every sales transaction, there is one debit entry. So debit entry with whatever name, like bad debts, or the name basically does not matter much, because the same policy is not for every party. This policy is being understood. Each and every sale transaction, there is one debit entry, and the and you should check thoroughly with respect to that item. So in the example, if we see that there might be a chances that there are actually bad debts, and you whatever excess you would have recovered, you are repaying it back, there might be chances. But there might be chances that if the company is huge and they are, like for example, if they are running into construction business, then if like there can be a possibility that contracts are manipulated, probably contracts are overvalued just to avail extra bank facilities, or just to avail extra loan. So based on that inflated contract price, you are receiving the whole money, and your actual cost of the project is less. So then the balance amount, you are repaying it back to the party. So this can also be one situation. There can be also situation that it is correct, and just that we are repaying it back the excess amount we would have received based on estimation, and after issuing the actual invoice, we are giving it back to the party. So this can be a indicator that something, basically red flags are something, you can say that something unusual transaction, or something offbit transaction. So that with respect to that matters, you should check thoroughly, and you should dig down the deep into the matter to have an idea that what is the actual scenario. And we should always consider substance over form, especially when we are looking into such kind of transactions. So that is the introduction and explanation with respect to terminologies that are being used throughout the whole forensic accounting, investigation, and auditing. Now, if we see the difference between audits and forensic audits. So, being a chartered accountant, it is a special privilege that of being an auditor. So we are entitled to do normal audits, statutory audits, tax audit, company audits, etc. And forensic audit is something which we are foresightful about doing that, since as the sir said that ICI is also coming up with various standards on it. So that's the key point, or that's the that's the sign that this is going to be a very emerging and useful field for exploring our knowledge as well as our practice of the profession. So if we see the difference between other audits and forensic audit. So a normal audit, we always start with the objective that to give an opinion that based on the information and explanations provided to us, we provide an opinion that the financial affairs of the company give true and fair presentation. So we can give a reasonable assurance based on our audit procedure and based on the evidences we have gathered, based on our analysis and everything. So for normal audits, we aim to give true and fair view opinion on the financial statements and on the financial affairs of the company. While forensic audit, like we can say that where the normal audits or where the thought process of the normal audit ends, the forensic audit starts. In normal audit, we give an opinion that financial affairs of the company are good and there is no material misstatement. Whereas forensic audit, we always start forensic audit with the objective to identify the fraud and to do the further investigation. Whereas our audit, we like never start with suspicious frame of mind. Detecting the fraud can be an ancillary objective of our statutory audit, whereas detecting and preventing the fraud is the core objective of the forensic audit, I can say that. With respect to techniques which are being used in audits and forensic audits, we can say that we in audits, like we follow compliance procedure, substantive procedure, and based on the quantum of the data and transaction, we select the samples and we thoroughly check those samples and we perform various procedure. Same thing, like since for forensic audit, it is like normal audit we would always perform, and forensic audit is just an extension. So all the procedure that we follow in our normal audit, we will follow that in forensic audit. Plus, so apart from compliance and substantive procedure, we would also do in-depth checking. We would also perform investigative techniques such as like interviews or doing something beyond our scope that we follow in our normal audits. So extensive techniques that would be used while doing forensic audit. For statutory audits, normally like a period is specified that either we are doing quarterly or annually. Normally statutory audits we will do for annually, whereas forensic audit, since it is more of an investigation and fraud detection, there would be no specific time limits, and practically it is also not possible that we cannot anticipate how long an investigation will take. So there is no specific time limits for the forensic audit, that we are doing this for commencing from 1st April 2019 to 31st March 2020. It is not possible in case of forensic audit. So this is also a key difference between audits and forensic audit. Now there are a few items which, like while doing a statutory audit, we rely, of course we like perform our audit procedure and field work, but apart from that, there are few items on which, like for which we rely on management representation. For example, cash balances. We might do a surprise physical verification of cash, but apart from that, we will always obtain a management letter with respect to cash, or management confirmation with respect to inventories, or debtors balance, closing balance confirmations, current account balance confirmation, so etc. The list goes on. So there are few items for which we rely on management confirmation and management representation, because in our audit we tend to obtain a reasonable assurance, and if we are getting something in return which we can document that this is this and this is the value, and management is certifying that, so that is apparently a reasonable assurance, being an statutory or being an external auditor. Whereas in forensic audit, like since we are doing more of investigation and fraud detection, like it is not advisable to obtain reasonable assurance. We have to be sure shot when it comes to forensic audit. So management representation is considered as a secondary evidence when it comes to forensic audit, but a forensic auditor would like personally, or his team, or based on his resources, he would do in-depth checking of each and every line item of financial statements, and if something is correlated to non-financial aspects also, then also he would dig deep down into that matter, and he would not just rely on the management confirmation or some external confirmation unless it is like authorized. For example, if he is during his forensic audit, if he is obtaining supportings from like a registered valuer, then it would be considered as a concrete evidence, because that evidence he can produce in the court of law as a documentation. But just management confirmation is not sufficient when it comes to forensic audit. Now, off balance sheet items. So normally we are doing financial audits, of course, like we do internal audits, operational audits, management audits, energy audit, environment audits. Various emerging concepts are coming out because of necessity. But apparently, being chartered accountants, we are more into financial audits. So we don't tend to look much and thoroughly into the off balance sheet items, like. But when it comes to forensic audit, we would need to uh, check of off balance sheet items, non financial consideration, because we are checking each and every line item. We are understanding the business thoroughly, because that's when we will be able to identify that whether there are any loopholes or whether there are any frauds carried on, or if not, what can be the sound or strong control that an entity should implement to avoid the fraud. So just mere checking financial items and mere going through financial statements is not sufficient when it comes to forensic audit and forensic investigation. Now, during a normal audit, if we are coming through some adverse findings, we would give a qualified opinion, or we would give a modified opinion, or we would state that as an emphasis of matter paragraph. So, or we will give a disclaimer of opinion at if situation demands. But when it comes to forensic audit, like during after carried on the forensic audit and investigation procedure, if you are coming out through some adverse findings, then that finding should be properly documented into your report, and you should submit it to the concerned authority. You should document that, and you should state that into such a manner that can be used properly into the litigation procedure, that might be in future, if some litigation procedure is going on against that company, your forensic audit report should be a concrete evidence with respect to those adverse findings. We will see a report of forensic auditor later on in our session, so that would enable that would give us more idea that how things are being reported. With respect to forensic audit also, we should check like a 360-degree evaluation. Basically, if I can sum up the things with respect to forensic audit, like we should do 360-degree evaluation. If one transaction is coming up into our mind, and if we are of the after one experience, you can sense that this is not usual, or there might be something wrong. So with respect to those transactions, you should do a 360-degree evaluation of the transaction, and each and every matter which is related to that transaction, you should check, you should verify, and based on that, you should carried out the further process of the audit. being a forensic auditor, we should also see the multidimensional aspects of one transaction. So these are the basic or the key differences between the other audits and forensic audits. Now, if we see the characteristics of the forensic auditor, forensic auditor being a forensic auditor, we should have a strong visualization and imagination, because when like in the differences we saw that we have to consider multidimensional view, and we should carry out 360-degree evaluation of any transaction. So for that, strong visualization is very important, because there might be things which are not, like prima facie everything seems very good and very correct, but if you think from multiple point of view, you might come out through something that would lead to some observation, or that would lead you to some red flags in the organization. So the strong visualization is basic characteristic of the forensic auditor. He should be curious. Now, when we want to, like, our core objective or the aim of the engagement is to find out the fraud and to detect the fraud, then in that case we should be very curious about each and every transaction, or we should be very curious about the business process, or there are few subtle things that are not documented, or that we cannot get it from the documents of the company or supportings or evidences. But those subtle things we would be able to know only if we are curious enough to know the details, and we are curious enough to about the client and about its operations. So curiosity is another characteristic we must possess. Of course, these all characteristics we are having and we implement also while doing our audits. But when it comes to forensic audit, these things are like must thing, or primary things that we should follow. Then persistence. Now, as we discussed earlier, that normal audits have a limited time frame. Now, since forensic audit is more of investigation, it is bound to be that it will take long once you start the investigation process. So, since it is going to be very long, and the whole process will take time, you never know how much. So an auditor should be persistent enough. He should be patient enough to deal with people and to obtain the evidences, because if he is not persistent, then it is like next to impossible to keep the same curiosity and to keep the same integrity during the whole audit. So persistence is also one key. Detail oriented. Now, anyway, in the present era, data is the asset. Details is what we also like try to obtain maximum details while carrying out our audit. But when it comes to forensic audit, a forensic auditor like literally thrives for details, I can say, because details and data is the primary source for his analysis. Details are the base on which he can plan and he can perform his further procedure. So he should always be detail oriented, because insufficient details would always lead you to a misleading results. Parallelly, incorrect details or insufficient details will also be more harmful. So obtaining details and obtaining correct details is the aim and characteristic of a forensic auditor. Creativity. Now he should be a forensic auditor should be very creative, because uh, like we as an forensic auditor, we have to see the unseen things. We have to go far beyond the explanations that are provided, or far beyond the evidences that we are obtained, because like while doing audit, we always keep in our mind that we rely on the explanations that our client provides, and normally we tend to rely on the evidences that a client is giving. Now, for example, if you are verifying, if you are vouching the sales transaction, then if you are having like if in a big company that follows the whole sales procedure, then if there is a purchase order, local purchase order, then invoice, then like payment receipt, if it is like amount is big, then payment advice, and the whole flow of transaction is supported by the evidence. So while doing normal audit, it is possible that we consider it as proper, and we tend to opine that these things are proper and there are no material misstatements. Now, when it comes to forensic audit, uh, we like if you are creative and if your visualizations are strong, you might think that these evidences can also be manipulated. There might be chances that details are being changed through like PDF editor, for example, just on a lighter note. So these things you might see, or you might visualize if you are your imagination power is strong and you are enough creative to see the unseen things. Basically, skepticism, professional skepticism is not just an identity of forensic auditor, but it is a principle also, and it is an identity of a chartered accountant and hence an auditor. So that is also the same for a forensic auditor. Confidence. Now, many times it is said that what you do is how you do and how you communicate, that is more important than what you communicate and what you say. Like there is a proverb now that attitude is more important than reality. So now doing forensic audit and investigation, since your whole objective is to find out the fraud, employees and the stakeholders would also know about this. So in this hostile situation, getting details from the employees, or getting proper responses from management would might be a tiresome process for an auditor. So at that time his confidence would enable him to process further, and his persistence would also help at this time to handle the hostile situation and to uh, deal with the conflicting situation. Then a sound professional judgment, based on the evidences, his conclusions will be based on his professional judgments, like considering materiality and all other principles that we are following in our normal audits also. So that is also an characteristic of a forensic auditor, that he should be having a sound professional judgment for the process which he is carrying on. Then out of box thinking, as we discussed in all the above mentioned characteristics, that one thing is for sure with respect to forensic auditor, that he has to see beyond evidences, beyond explanations, and beyond the prima facie things that are being available to him. So he has to think out of the box. He has to if you are fan of like reading or web series, then I can say that if you want to be a forensic auditor, you should be a Sherlock Holmes of the Sherlock Holmes of the company. So that's out of box thinking would enable you to gather more evidences and to enable the further process. A few other characteristics are like subtle things. You have to see the subtle things. You have to like being a forensic auditor, we should see unusual from the usual things. That apparently, for example, there are entries of like miscellaneous expenses, that there are for example 1,000 employees, and every 2 days a staff advance or some miscellaneous expense accounts are being credited or debited in those employees accounts. So now if you see the impact of one transaction, it is not material with respect to the whole company. But if you see the collective impact of those transactions, your professional judgment might change, and you might find the red flag from that. So that seeing unusual from the usual things will enable to carry out process further nicely and efficiently. We should always keep in the mind while doing forensic audit that we are not just an accountant. We are not we are chartered accountants, but with this we are more of investigator. So further while doing the forensic audit, we should apply inverse logic. So now what is inverse logic? Whatever has been provided to you as details or as an evidences, you should filter out that what can be wrong. So from all the details available to you, or from all the explanations that are given to you, you eliminate based on your professional judgment, you eliminate each and everything that can be wrong. So now what remains, that might be true, and that might lead you to the conclusions, or that might lead you to give a strong opinion on the stated objective for which you are engaged for the assignment. So applying inverse logic will also help forensic auditor. Then for a good student, there is one shlok that defines characteristics of a good student. So that is kakal drashti baka dhyanam shwananindra tathaivacha. So that means that being a good student, your eyesight should be as strong as crow. Your concentration should be as strong as buttock. Then your sleep should be like a dog that with a minor sound also your sleep would be awakened. Alpaharam jirna vastra, having good and good qualitative food and having simple clothes. So these are the characteristics that are given in our shastras for a good student. So similarly, if I want to conclude the characteristics,
Audit.
so similarly if
Text audit.
Similarly, if I want to, state the characteristics of a forensic auditor in a simple or in a summarized way, we are like watchdogs, or we are like those security guards if you see the prime minister or some officials, the security guards would always be that awakened and will always be so conscious that you never know that their eyesights are everywhere. So we can compare forensic auditors with that we should always be thriving
અરે ભાઈ હું તને
for
ઇન્ફોર્મ
details.
મેલ
Our
કરું એમાં
eyesight
અટેચમેન્ટ છે ને પ્રિન્ટ કાઢ દે આ એક
our
કર્યો ને બીજો
eyesight should be there on uh, our eyesight should be there on each and every detail and each and every affair that is going on in the company, because that this is not the thing that we would just give our opinion based on financial statements, because that would not that only aspect would not enable us to do the whole investigation or to identify the fraud. So we have to consider other non-financial consideration and non-financial aspects, operational aspects. So that's why these all characteristics would help us to carry out our process nicely. Now, skill set of a forensic auditor. We saw that characteristics and what is the forensic audit and how it is carried on. Now, if you want to be the forensic auditor, what skill set should you possess? Now, since we all are chartered accountants, we are bound to possess very good skill set because of the robust examination system of ICAI, and we are like the heated gold that always shines. So being a forensic auditor is comparatively quite easy for us rather than in comparison with other professionals, because the basic skill sets and basic criteria we already possess being a chartered accountant. So this would be an added advantage for us, and that's why it is a very emerging concept for us. We are seeing immense opportunities in this field as of now. So if you want to be the forensic auditor, these are the few skills that we should possess. First is knowledge of accounting standards, procedures, and related methodologies. So, of course, we are seeing other operational aspects also, but when it comes to forensic accounting and auditing, it is like integration of accounting and auditing skills. So having knowledge of accounting standards and its procedure and other methodologies which are related with accounts and audits, so that is a must criteria, and that we are like we chartered accountants are like a pro in that field. So it becomes very comparatively very easy for us to become a forensic auditor. Then accounting and business reporting system. So apart from accounting, we should we should also know the business, and we should know the business reporting system, because unless and until we understand the business transaction, or the modus operandi of the business, or the loopholes of the business, the subtle things of the business. So unless and until we know all those things about business, it would be not possible for us to do a detailed investigation or to identify the fraud. So having a sound knowledge of accounting, and especially accounting that is related to that business, that is knowledge of sound knowledge of that is required for being a forensic auditor. Now if I give another example here, if you see the shipping companies, for example, so for shipping companies, it is like for every purchase and sales of vessel, one MOA, like management of association, like MOA, memorandum of association, is created between the purchaser and seller, and that's how the shipping industry works generally. So now, when you are checking the details, or when you are doing the audit of such company, you should be aware about this fact that for each vessel or for each transaction, this is the system. Because that's if you are thoroughly aware about it, then only you will be able to see beyond the evidences. So now, for example, you are aware about it, and then there is, like, with few parties, there are like, while doing the sales, there is MOA, sales invoice, credit notes, payment advice, everything is proper, like. But then for sales invoice, there is the company's name is there, but it is like a party is, or some group company only, and then in that invoice it is like care of then this company. Whereas when you know the actual business process of the shipping company, it is not the case. Like, MOA and the invoices should be in the name of company only. It should not be addressed to that company. It should be like solely for that company. So that is a red flag that there might be something new, there might be something wrong. So then you check in depth, and there might be a chances that it might be correct, and there might be chances, and there might be high chances that something is wrong. And later on, like in one case study I was referring, it was mentioned that the company was not the actual owner of the vessels, and still they were showing it in their balance sheet as a property, plant and equipment, and they were booking the profits also on the sale of vessels, because it was supported by the management letter that related party was giving authorities of ship management to the company. But that is not the case. Like, unless and until you are not possessing the title, you cannot show in the balance sheet. So these all things you will come to know only if you are having a sound knowledge of the business system and the business process. So that is also a skill which is required by the forensic auditor. Information technology, IT is the skill which everyone should possess in this era, because each and everything is correlated by the IT only. We are, and COVID is like just an example, we can say, that is proving that IT is the future, and everything is based on IT, it appears so as of now. So that skill also we should possess, being a forensic auditor. Data analytics, as we discussed earlier, that a forensic auditor generally thrives for the data, and he generally expects more and more data. So now, merely gathering the data would not help us to carry to to derive to the conclusion, but how the analysis we perform on the data and the process we carried out, like trend analysis, ratios, variances, metrics, statistical hypothecation, whatever analysis we perform, but proper analysis on the data obtained is also very important, because it is otherwise, if the raw data is of no use unless and until it is sorted and properly analyzed. So data analytics tools or data analytics skills also would be possessed by the forensic auditor. Criminology. Now, since we are not just carried out our process on financial aspects or on financial statements, further, the core of the forensic is to obtain evidences that can be presented in the court of law or that can be used in the litigation procedure. So during like finding out the frauds, there might be a chances that you have to deal with criminal department or situations where crimes would have been carried out, or so basic knowledge of that field also would be required by the forensic auditor. Legal framework, ultimately legal framework, like knowing the legal framework in which our company is working, that is required. And since it is a matter of forensic audit, sound knowledge of legal framework and legal aspects is also a skill that a forensic auditor should possess. Then litigation process and procedure, he should be aware about that. Investigative techniques, since it is more of investigation, so he should be aware and he should be well versed with the investigative techniques like interviews and interrogations and everything, because especially when you are finding out the fraud, it might be possible that employees are not, or the stakeholders are not properly corresponding you. So how to get details, from them, how to obtain evidences. So at that time, investigative techniques might help you. Evidence gathering, getting details and data done from client is most of the case it is a tough task, and so is the same for forensic auditing also. So he should be well versed with the skill of getting things done and getting the data from the client. Next skill is network in professional contacts in the related fields. So now you are checking each and every aspect, multidimensional view you are following while doing the forensic audit. So it is not that you would just your investigation would just be restricted to financial aspects. You might need a help of like a registered valuer, or you might need a help of lawyer or someone who is expert in criminal department. So having a good network in the field is an added advantage. And since we all are Gujarati, I would like to quote that one thing in Gujarati, that we always say that ઓળખાણ એ જ સૌથી મોટી ખાણ છે. આપણે કંઈ પણ નવું કરીએ, આપણે બહુ એકદમ સારી રીતે કરી જ લઈશું, no doubt about that. But whenever we are trying to do something new, or whenever we are trying to open a venture, we will always ask 5 people that કોઈ ઓળખાણમાં છે તો જોવો ને, ખાલી વાત તો કરીને રાખો. So this is the impact of network, and the same is being followed in the followed by the professional, and same is being followed by forensic auditor also. So these are the few and key skills that a forensic auditor should possess, that would help him to process his investigation nicely and smoothly and efficiently. Now, if we see the forensic accounting process, the steps are, first is initialization. So that is that you communicate with the prospective client, or the prospective client might approach you, and then you discuss the scope, situation, and based on that you carried out, you perform engagement letter. You give them engagement letter stating the scope of the audit and the procedure that would be carried out, and then the client would confirm the same. So initialization of the audit is the first step. In that, initialization would also include the aspects like understanding the business and the key requirement of the client, the purpose for which they are approaching us, like to identify the fraud or to prevent the fraud, or they want to take some corrective measures, they want to apply protective measures. So what is the intent of the client, what is the intent of the concerned party, that we should understand. So all these aspects would be covered in the initialization step of the process. Next is develop the plan. So it is moreover the same as like audit planning we do. So based on the requirement and based on the scope that we have decided, we would we would make a plan that would include like the timeline or the human resources that would be deployed for that assignment, or and the whole process and the timeline for carrying out the forensic auditing. So that is the second step for of the process. Third is obtain relevant evidences. Now after developing the plan, we would approach our audit, we would approach our investigation or audit. Once we receive the relevant evidences, then only like we will be able to perform the further procedure, or then only we will be able to like plan further or what we should do. Then only we will be able to see the red flags, and based on that we would carry out our further procedure. So the next step is obtaining relevant evidences that would enable us in the forensic accounting procedure. Next is perform analysis. Now mere evidences or mere the data is not that much useful. So sorted, organized data and the analysis on that data or evidences, that is also a very useful step we should follow on. Because once we do the analysis, or for example ratio analysis or variance analysis or trend analysis or whatever the analysis technique we are following, once we do the analysis, then only we will be able to like compare, and then only we will be able to see the material differences, and the we would be able to identify the potential areas in which we should further investigate, or which are not material that we can neglect. So based on analysis only we will be able to identify the key things or key matters of the business and of the audit. Next is reporting. So once the planning and fieldwork of the audit and investigation is done, the next step is reporting, as we follow in our audits also. So the report would be addressed to the like management or some other party who had with whom we had signed the engagement letter. So in that report, the whole summary would be mentioned, the procedure that we had carried out that would be mentioned, our findings and our observations, everything would be mentioned in the report. So that is the next step of the process. And the next and last step is court proceedings. So ultimately this report and the evidences would be presented in the court of law, or in a forum specifically. So we should be ready that we have to, like we might have to go through that litigation process and court proceedings. So these are the steps, rather this is the process of carrying out the whole forensic accounting and auditing. Now if we like bifurcate the steps, so first is understanding the business, identifying possible frauds that could exist, and catalog possible fraud systems. So this is basically that would be included in the initialization and develop the plan. So these are like analytical steps of the process. Now, once you are identifying the possible fraud symptoms, then you would use the technology, or then you would use your techniques to gather the data, which are potential frauds, or which you have identified as red flags. So that is the next step. And based on the data, you'll analyze the results. So these are the technology steps. We can categorize these steps into technology steps. And once we have analyzed our results, then based on our analysis, we would based on our professional judgment, we would further decide on the investigation portion, and follow up on that. And based on investigation, automate detection procedure with respect to frauds or possible frauds. So during the investigation, if you are finding that there can be frauds, so then further will carry out a process with respect to identifying and detecting the frauds. And otherwise, we would do follow up on the points which were under investigation. So this is the whole process of carrying out our forensic audit. It is moreover the similar which we follow in the audit, that planning, execution, and reporting. But it is subcategorized and reframed or reworded with respect to forensic accounting and that relevant terminology. Now we saw the forensic audit process. So planning and reporting is normal, that we would do based on the requirement and a discussion with client, and reporting we would do based on the field work that we have carried out. But while doing the field work or while doing the forensic audit, which techniques we can use that would help us in the audit? So first is general audit techniques, since it is an extension of audit only. So the normal audit techniques like compliance procedure, substantive procedure, test checking, sampling, uh, external confirmations, and using work of another auditor. So all the techniques and all the criteria that we are using in our statutory audit, that we will carry out for forensic audit as well. So those general audit techniques we would use. Next is statistical and mathematical techniques. So since forensic audit, normally it would be carried out for big companies or big corporates or big organization basically. So looking to the quantum and volume of the data, there would be a huge data. So we would perform the so on that data, to make that data relevant for us, we would perform various statistical and mathematical techniques, such as trend analysis, ratio analysis, variance analysis, then metrics. Then if you are well versed with statistics, then you might apply or you might do this correlation regression thing, and hypothecation also, based on the imagination and correlating that with the current data. So you might apply hypothecation also. So these all are the statistical and mathematical techniques that might be used to carry out the forensic audit. Next is technology based or digital forensic techniques. Now, especially in the present era, since we are going digitally, and we are becoming technology driven. So organizations are also shifting to the technology and digital aspects only, rather than maintaining everything manually and physically. So using technology based techniques is also a very important, and that would enable us to carry out our fieldwork properly. So in that, if we see the technology based, it becomes very difficult. It becomes quite difficult for an auditor that to track the audit trail, or like if the data is deleted, or then it is quite difficult for us to check those deleted data, and we might not give the given the proper access. So based on the restricted access and based on the considering the technological aspects, the techniques we can use is cross drive analysis or live analysis. We can ask for the trail of the deleted files, etc. So these technological techniques would also help us. Next is computer assisted auditing techniques, CAATs. This is also a very quite famous and quite known by the chartered accountants, that black box white box approach and everything. So these is basically like audit techniques that are revolving around the computers and the computer tools and computer techniques. So in that spreadsheets or like Excel, Access, various generalized audit softwares are being used to analyze the details and evidences. So these techniques are also useful. Then common software tools. There are various audit softwares that are like readily available in the market with respect to audits, and we can also develop a customized software based on the requirement of our organization. So having knowledge of those softwares and getting the data from those softwares would also help us. So that is also one technique we can apply to get the data and to get the correct data rather. Then data mining techniques. So data mining techniques is basically like organizing the data and using organizing it in such a manner that would enable our objectives basically. So it is also called as data analytics also. So that data mining techniques are also useful. In data mining techniques, there are further three parts. First is discovery, second is predictive models, and the third is deviation. So discovery is basically our findings based on the data we have obtained and the analysis we have carried out on that data. Next is predictive modeling. So based on the data, like there are chances that certain transaction would occur repetitively, or there is one pattern for each and every organization, a different pattern. So based on that we can do a predictive model, or based on that we can make one model based on that available data. So next is that step, and third is deviation, that actual data and the model we had made based on the principle and based on the general tendency or modus operandi of the organization. So in the next step we would find out the deviation between the actual data and the data modeling that we had done. So this is also one very useful technique that would help us doing forensic audit. So these are various techniques that are being useful, apart from using MS Excel or various softwares like SAP, MIS, DBMS, etc. So in present era, we can say that more techniques would revolve around information technology and digitalization. So we have to be well versed with those skills when it comes to forensic audit. Next is principles of drafting forensic audit report. So until now, we saw that if you want to carry out the forensic audit, what skill set we should possess, how we will do, that is forensic audit or accounting techniques. So what and how is done. Now whatever we have done, and whatever techniques we have used, and based on that whatever our findings are, so now how that would be like reported, or how that would be disclosed. So those all points would be disclosed in forensic audit report. But how a report should be. So these are the principles of drafting forensic audit report. First is understandable and easy to read, because of course the report would be addressed to the management or the concerned party or court, whatever the interested party may be. But it would be read by so many stakeholders, or it can be used as a research for that company also. So it should be the report should be understandable, and it should be easy to read, not just by the like financial experts, but by a person who has a normal knowledge of business and business terminologies. So it should be understandable and easy to read. It should be unambiguous. It should be very clear. The terminologies that are being used in the forensic audit report, that should be clear, that should not be vague. And basically it should like what you want to say, the same should be perceived by the reader. So to clarity to that extent is a must for drafting the forensic audit report. Because like see, even if the specific format is given, but the forensic audit report would for sure differ from company to company and from organization to organization, because the findings would be different, the circumstances would be different, the frauds would be different, categories would be different, auditors observation and their recommendations would be different. So it even if it is like a specific format is given, but there can be very much changes, and the whole report would be subjective to the circumstances and to the operations of the company. So it is very important to make all those points very clear, that would be easily understandable by the reader. Relevant references. It is important to quote the relevant references for the data and the details that you are mentioning in the report, or like references on which basis you have you have performed your analysis, or the references which you have used to derive your conclusions. So it is very important to quote those all references into audit report itself. Next is valid conclusions, opinions and recommendations. There is like a separate segment in the forensic audit report, that in which segment our conclusions and our opinions are mentioned, and on those conclusion what are our recommendations, that are also mentioned. So all these points should be clearly stated in the forensic audit report. Then keep on updating the report throughout the process. So now, since it is a very long procedure, and the investigation process might take time, like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we never know. So we should make a draft report, and based on the findings we are gathering, or based on the conclusions we are deriving, so based on those data or evidences, we should update a draft report accordingly, because if you prepare a report once, once the whole investigation is done, it would be quite difficult to list down all the items so properly. So it is advisable to make a draft report time to time, as and when you are gathering details and as and when you are putting your observation on those items. Next is confidentiality language. Even if you are quoting everything in the forensic audit report, but you should also ensure mentioned properly. So even if the even if after providing all the details very clearly, you should take care of the confidentiality. Then a report should be well structured and well drafted. Like if you are quoting one findings, then along with that finding only, your recommendation, opinions, and corrective measures taken by management, everything that is related to that finding should be enlisted at one place. So that is how a whole report should be very well structured, so that would enable the readers and basically the users of the report to correlate the things and to have a holistic approach of the whole investigation basically. Then complete facts elaborating the case. In the forensic audit report, you would need to quote the whole details of the case, that why the forensic audit was started, and what were your findings, which were the facts that based on that you found out that there are red flags and you decided to do the further investigation. So all the facts that are relevant to the case should be stated very properly in the forensic audit report only. Then detailing of the evidences, along with the data and the details, you should in the report we should mention the evidences that we have obtained and the list of the evidences that we have taken as a supporting to derive the conclusion and to carry out the analysis process. So that would also be mentioned in the report. And next is observation supported with the annexures. Observations supported with annexures. So whatever you have found out that you should enlist in a separate exhibit, that should be supported with an annexure, and your observation, everything at one place with respect to that finding. So that is also a thing we should keep in our mind while drafting forensic audit report. So these are the relevant principles we should focus on. Next is a structure of a forensic audit report. So now this we will quickly, if we go through the report structure, it would be index, then overview of the business and the entity, then executive summary stating the facts in the brief, methodologies that we have applied, and our findings. Then backgrounds and allegations. So what is the background of the business and what were the allegations based on which you started forensic audit and you started fraud investigation. Then detailed methodology. Methodologies that you had applied, you have to enlist that into a detailed manner. Then main report, detailed timeline. So timeline that when it was started, when you started your field work, when the details were received, when you submitted a draft report, when the consent from management was received, when did you receive management responses, then what was your further procedure, then when you submitted final draft, when you submitted the final report. So the whole detailed timeline would be stated. Then scope reconciliation, so it is more like a checklist. So while giving engagement letter to the party, we would have enlisted our scope that we would cover this much aspects while doing our forensic investigation. So in the report we would do a scope reconciliation in comparison with the scope we had decided in our engagement letter, and we would reconcile that with our fieldwork and the audit procedure that we had carried out. So it would be more of a checklist and more of a comparison, or finalizing the to-do list, basically we can say in a simple manner. Next is detailed methodology, collection of evidence and implementation, then procedure performed, findings in details, point-wise finding and analysis. So we have to state everything point-wise: observations, findings, management response, or recommendation. With respect to that point, everything should be at one place. Then limitations, if there were any limitations which were put by the management, or few inherent limitations, or like a few limitations that you were not able to gather the data, or you were not able to collect the proper evidences. So whatever limitations that were put or that had been faced by the you during the whole forensic audit, that should be stated in the report. Then disclaimers, if any, then glossary and abbreviations, so the terminologies that are being used in the report, that should be stated separately, and appendix and exhibits, if any. So that would be a structure of forensic audit report. And this is the structure of corporate fraud report. It is moreover the same, like overview, executive summary, background, allegations, detailed methodology, methodology verification, detailed timeline, scope reconciliation, then main report, sorry. In main report, the brief of the company, objects of the company, management's detail, financial position, these all would be stated. Then findings in the detail, limitation and disclaimer. So this is the structure of corporate fraud report. Now I would like to share one forensic audit report with you, so that would give a more and clear idea. Is report visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. So this is one report of public school of USA, in which fraud like forensic audit was carried out. So this is like a table of contents stating the all elements of the report. Then if I've highlighted a few important points that we have discussed, that how it is practically reported and implemented. So this is the report of independent accountants and consulting procedure. In that, first is like the school had approached forensic auditors. So the whose audit is done, that is stated, and for which requirement it was done. Then this is the executive summary. This is the report only. So as we discussed that contents of the report, so this is the executive summary. Purpose is being stated. Then the scope is being stated, that they are having a limited scope of forensic examination. and why it was stated, like why the audit started allegations. So whether the schools had suffered from theft, fraud, or embezzlement by their former bookkeeper. So I'll share this report with you, but the case study is like there were cash embezzlement by the accountant and by the cash manager, bookkeeper basically. And later on the authorities found out the fraud, and to identify that and to take corrective measures, they had appointed forensic auditors. So this is stated. Then summary of the like fact of the client, that why it was started. Financial department became aware of the several abnormalities in the accounting of schools activities funds. So this is the summary. Then what was the procedure carried out by the auditor? So that is stated that based on the information available, a procedure determined that. So this is their findings. So that is highlighted in the report. And on which basis they had done that, and their findings. So all the findings are like mentioned in the exhibit 5, schedule of findings and responses. Rationalization on this states the whole summary of the case, that what led management to identify that there is a fraud, and what led the management to appoint the forensic auditor and carry out this whole procedure. Then this is their consulting procedure, the procedure that the forensic auditor had carried out. And this is in details, like a stepwise explanations of the procedure that they had carried. Then corrective actions till date taken by the management, that is also stated in the forensic audit report itself. Then this is the disclaimer that we were not engaged to and did not conduct an audit examination, the objective of which would be the expression of an opinion on the accounting records. So we provided no opinion, attestation, or other form of assurance. So this is the disclaimer put by the forensic auditors in the report itself. And the another disclaimer is that it is intended solely for the information of the parties specified above. So this is addressed to the management of the school, because they had internally like appointed auditors to find out the frauds. And this is like exit conference, that it states that the report was presented and it was finalized in the presence of these many persons. So till that it was a report. Now there are various exhibits. So exhibit 1 like states the whole organization chart of that school. Because see, we discuss now that we should be aware about each and every small details, then only we will be able to get the holistic approach of the organization, and then only we will be able to get the proper details and explanations. So since it was more of a government agency and government school, they have prepared an organization chart and they have attached it as a part of report. Then the second exhibit states that since the issue was embezzlement of cash, so they have listed down the receipts and corresponding effects of that cash receipts into the bank for the period of which the forensic audit was carried out. So this is the second exhibit. Third exhibit is of application of that cash. Then fourth is there was also, in this case, there was also a complaint by vendors that they are not being paid on the time. So vendors disbursement list was also prepared by them. And next exhibit is their procedure and findings and responses. So first, this is a summary of their findings, and after the summary there is a detailed discussion of like a detailed, analysis of each and every finding. So now if you see this one finding, so what is its effect, what is its cause, what is the recommendation that is given by the auditors, and based on that recommendation, what is the management response, and corrective actions taken by them, who was the responsible person for that fraud or for that finding, and by what time the corrective actions were taken. So basically this is the then the whole report consists of the same for each and every finding. So this is the one audit report, so we can understand the actual how it is being prepared practically. Now when we are discussing forensic audits, so and its impact in the India, we would also we should know about the pioneers who had who had implemented forensic accounting and auditing concepts in the India. So CA Mayur Joshi, he is the founder of India Forensic Company, and he had presented a paper revolving around this topic in 2003, and for which he had for which he had received an award from the US in 2006. So he was the first Indian who had received award for this topic and for the research carried out on this topic. Then second is Dr. Apurva Joshi. She is the youngest CFE chartered forensic examiner. She was the youngest one from the India who had cleared this exam, and presently she is the a board member of Risk Pro company, and she has also authored one book named Handbook on Forensic Accounts. So when we are these two people are the pioneers of the forensic accounting, investigation, and auditing in the India. Our own institute is also offering a certificate course on forensic accounting and fraud detection. Then the company of Mayur Joshi, this India Forensic Company, they provide the certified forensic accounting professional CFAP certification course that would enable professional to have a certificate degree and to get themselves registered as a forensic accounting professional. So along with India Forensic has also various tie-ups with BSc and NSE Academy in association with India Forensic Center of Studies that provide a sectoral specification certification course for specifically for banks, insurance, and stock market. So bank forensic accountants, insurance forensic accountants, and stock market forensic accountants. So these are three sectoral expertization certification courses that are being carried on in India with respect to forensic accounting and auditing. Now our ICI has also issued preface framework and principles for forensic auditors. So the drafts are issued on 27th August. The preface lists down the following aspects like introduction and objectives, why these standards, then a framework that would govern forensic accounting and investigation, then the standards, FAIS, mandatory nature of framework and standards, like once they are being implemented, it would be mandatory for all the auditors, just like the accounting standards, Indian accounting standards, and standards of auditing that we are following. So it would be in the mandatory nature once they are being followed, once they are being implemented. Then in preface itself, the standard setting process, how the standard would be formed, that is mentioned. Then contents of the standards, what would be the content of each standard, guidance, effective dates that are mentioned in the preface that is issued by our ICAI. Then framework includes introduction and scope definitions. So the terminologies definitions include like forensic, what is forensic accounting and investigation, fraud auditing. So all the terminologies that we have discussed are included in the framework. Then code of ethics. So basically as per the draft of ICAI framework, the forensic accounting and investigation would be divided into the following parts, like the framework, standard requirements of the professional. So code of ethics would be the same as we are following, as the chartered accountants are following code of ethics, professional ethics. Along with that, ICAI would further issue code of ethics that would be mandatorily and specifically followed by the forensic auditors. Then components and effective date. So that is included in the draft framework. I'll share if you wish, and you can also get the draft versions from our ICAI website also. Then as of now, ICAI has issued this 7 drafts of the FAIS. I would like to just give a quick view of the standards that are being issued, and ICAI has asked members comments on the same by 9th November. So you can go through those standards and give your expert comments. Being, let me share those draft versions with you. So this is first one is FAIS 210, engagement objectives. So this mainly deals with the engagement letter and the procedure that one should follow before signing the engagement letter, and how they should sign, and what would be the principles for signing the engagement letter, what documentation they should possess before signing the engagement letter. So FAIS 210 states those requirements. Then FAIS, so during the whole procedure you might need to deal with various agencies also. So how to deal with them? Just that just like we are having this essays that using work of another auditor, using work of internal auditor. So in a similar line manner, while dealing with agencies, this FAIS 240 we should be following. Then next is FAIS 310 that deals with planning the assignment and your audit engagement and deals with the evidences and documentation. Evidences you should get documentation that an auditor needs to do to safeguard him. So evidences and documentations related principles are being governed by FAIS 320. Then so audit or doing the field work, mannerism for that, principles for that, scope for that. So that would be included in FAIS 330. So now if you look at any standard, 4 points would be common in each standards, like contents, scope, criterias, like objectives, then its requirements and its effective dates. So like the drafts that are being issued as of now. Then FAIS 340 deals with conducting interviews. This is conducting interviews is very important because like you to obtain the evidences from various people, we might need to carry out various interviews. So a specific standard is being issued with respect to carried out interviews. Then FAIS 350 deals with review and supervision while doing the forensic auditing. So as of now, this much standards are being draft standards are being issued by the ICAI, and ICAI has requested comments by the 9th November. So you can go through this and give your comments on that. This is the basic principles of forensic accounting and investigation. This is also a draft version that is shared by the ICAI. So as per that draft, if you go through that draft, yeah. So yeah, if we go through the draft principles that are being like suggested by the ICAI, that these principles should be followed by any forensic auditor. Those are one is independence and neutrality, then integrity and objectivity, due professional care, confidentiality and secrecy, skills and competence, contextualization of any situation, primacy of truth, respecting rights and obligation. So these are various principles that are being suggested by the ICAI. Again, the list is subjective and the illustrative. It would be dependent on professional to professional and the based on the circumstances of the assignment. So these were the drafts we discussed. Now, if we want to conclude on the forensic audit part, we can say that it is a science, since it is governed by the rules and regulations and standards. Plus, it is more of an art, because in forensic audit you have to deal with people, you have to get data and things done from the people. So it would need a bit creative approach. It would be like a creative approach would be needed, that how to get things done from the people. So it is more of an art as well. So yeah, that's all from my side. I guess I have justified the topic, and if you have any questions, I would love to answer that.
So if anyone has a question, I request them to post the same in the chat box. Kaival, if you have received any question?
No, sir, not yet.
So there are meaning thereby that everybody understands the topic very well. That is what the one meaning is. And the forensic is a need of an hour, because government is facing problem with the revenue. And since this current pandemic situation is there, they have to relax certain taxes, but yes, fraud and investigation has to be there, and government's view will always be how to have a better and much more taxes in the pool. So
Correct.
for that reason, fraud like forensic has much more to do with, and if you have expertise, as our today's learned speaker said, if you develop this expertise, you can not going to worry about compliance being reduced. Say GST के return कम हो रहे हैं या बाकी compliances भी कम हो रहे हैं और GST audit नहीं रहा, then also I guess it will be a good when you chartered accountants will prove your expertise. So Dhara, on behalf of Ahmedabad branch of WRC of ICI, we are very much thankful to you for sparing the time, sharing the knowledge, and discussing and deliberating the topic nicely. Thank you very
sir.
much.
Thank you for providing me with this opportunity. I'm grateful for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We hope to see you frequently in the branch, and once it will be a new normal, we'll see how we can meet and discuss on fraud and investigation with
Yes,
new
it
and
would be my
creative
privilege.
forensic techniques. Yes. Thank you, Keval, for coordinating, and big thanks to all the participants who made this virtual meeting successful. We herewith ending this webinar. So thank you once again.
Thank you so
Bhushan
much.
sir.
Thank you, sir.